There's a crafter somewhere in the UK right now. She's been making beautiful things in her studio for years. She's talented, she's committed, she knows her craft inside out, but she's stuck. And it's not because she's not good enough. It's because nobody has ever translated the tools that big retailers have been using for years into language she can actually use. I heard her in the background of a video call with my wife during COVID, asking the exact same question I'd been solving for supermarket chains. I wish I had a crystal ball to predict what's going to sell. And that's when everything changed for me. Hi, my name's Keith Lockwood. I'm a retail consultant, the author of The Reluctant Retailer, and for the next 52 weeks, I'm going to share everything I know about building independent retail businesses that actually survive and thrive. This is the launch episode before the series proper begins in January. So let me give you context on who I am and why I'm telling you this. I didn't plan a career in retail. I fell into it sideways through a Saturday job, stacking shelves in my local supermarket. I then moved through to fruit and veg section. My grandfather had been a shopkeeper in Bristol. Retail was in the blood, though I didn't really know it at the time. In my 20s, I tried really hard not to join the establishment. Night shifts packing soap, portrait commissions. I even flirted with becoming an accountant. Then I ended up running a photographic studio for a market research company in Oxford. My job was to photograph every single product that supermarkets stocked. And one summer's day, and this is where it gets interesting, a supermarket delivery truck pulled up with their entire fresh fish range. The freezer had broken down en route. No air conditioning in the studio, no ventilation, kilos of slowly warming fish in the height of summer. I'll spare you the full sensory experience, but standing there I got curious. What were all these photographs actually used for? It turned out they were feeding into software called Spaceman that created shelf layouts for supermarkets. But here's what made it fascinating. The software didn't just arrange products prettily. It knew what sales each item made. It could calculate the optimum amount of stock for each product, where it should sit on the shelf, and therefore work out the ideal product mix. This was early days of what we now call category management. The research would eventually become a Channel 4 documentary on shopping psychology. Eye tracking studies, where people looked, what they saw, what they missed. I was hooked. From there, I became an account director working with most of the largest retailers in the UK. Later, I moved to a niche retail software company specializing in fashion, electronics, and DIY retail. And there's a surprising overlap between these sectors. The principles of good merchandising work across almost anything. Next thing I know, I was sitting in San Francisco, looking out over the bay, advising Gap on their product range. The brief was simple: less products, more income. Turned out I was quite good at that. Then the phone call started. We've heard good things about you. Would you like to work with us? That's how I found myself traveling to the middle of nowhere between Dallas and Fort Worth, working on something genuinely cutting edge, predicting sales based on shopper behavior, building on that earlier Oxford work. It was exciting, it was innovative, and it was relentless. My health crashed. It was serious stuff, and I had to take a year off to recover. Just as I was getting back on my feet, another call. We've heard good things. Could you join us? This time it was Oracle, their specialist global retail unit. I spent a lot of time in Africa and the Middle East, ensuring that their software was being implemented correctly, users knew what they were doing, and customers were delighted. I did that until, well, you guessed it, another call. We've heard good things. At this point, it was time to say, yes, but. And that's how my company was set up just over 7 years ago. Then COVID happened. My wife, Charlie, who's an excellent crafter, was on an online seminar with other makers, and I was in the background, half listening, probably drinking a cup of tea. And I heard one crafter say, in this utterly frustrated voice, I wish I could have a crystal ball so I could predict what's going to sell next. Whenever I make stock, someone wants to buy the thing I still need to make. And that's when something clicked. Here I was, someone who had spent 3 decades at the absolute forefront of retail, developing techniques, scientifically quantifying what works, working with billion-pound corporations on their strategies, helping retailers across the globe. And there was this maker, someone with genuine skill, genuine passion, completely stuck. Not because she wasn't good enough, but because she didn't know the thing I'd spent 3 decades learning. And that's when I realised, after all these years gaining this experience and knowledge, it was time to give back. Not to another major retailer, not to another software company, although I still work with those, to the people who actually need it most, the independents, the makers, the small shop owners who are brilliant at their craft but feel like they're drowning in the business side of retail. Here's what I've done over the past few months that might seem odd for someone with my background. I've been reading Reddit threads, scrolling through r/smallbusinessuk and r/askuk, listening to independent shop owners share their honest struggles in online forums where they think nobody's paying attention. And what I found was both heartbreaking and clarifying. You're not struggling because you're not good enough. You're struggling because the game changed. The rule book wasn't updated and nobody's bothered to translate the solutions that big retailers have been using for decades. Let me tell you what I mean. How am I supposed to compete with Amazon? This was the most common frustration I found. One comment stuck with me. They can deliver the same thing cheaper by tomorrow whilst I'm sitting here in an empty shop. What's the point? 53 replies later, most variant on I feel the same. But here's what I want you to understand. You're not competing with Amazon. You never were. You're competing with apathy and sameness. You're competing with the endless digital scroll. You're playing a completely different game. And the moment that you realize that, everything changes. The second pattern I saw everywhere, the secret recession. Sales cycles stretching out, customers holding off indefinitely, the post-COVID boom definitely over. One retailer wrote, "We're putting in the same effort but getting fewer results. Is this just the new normal?" 229 comments. The overwhelming feeling? Resignation. But here's what the data actually shows. It's not that nobody's spending, it's that spending patterns have fundamentally shifted. The shops that have adapted their product mix, their value proposition and their inventory management to this new reality, they're doing fine. I'm open 9 to 5, but my customers work 9 to 5. This one kind of made me chuckle and then made me sad. A shopkeeper posted this and the replies ranged from same here to can't afford evening staff to try late nights, nobody came. You're stuck in a traditional operating model in a world where people's actual availability has changed completely. And the standard advice, just open later, ignores the very real constraints of running a small business. Every high street looks the same. Another common thread. My shop is full, my products are good, but people still walk past. How do I stand out in a sea of sameness? That's a great question. The shops succeeding in the past few years have figured out their unique advantage. Not unique products necessarily, though that helps. Unique positioning, unique relationships, unique experiences. Let me be direct about what I found in those Reddit threads, conversations with retailers, and honest struggles people share when they think nobody's listening. You're exhausted. You're doing everything right, and it's still not enough. You're watching high streets decline, footfall drop, costs rise, and you're wondering how much longer you can keep this up. It's confusing. Every expert has different advice. Every article contradicts the last one. You're drowning in information but starving for clarity. It's isolating. You can't talk to your customers about struggles. That would worry them. You can't talk to suppliers. That would weaken your position. And you can't talk to your competitors, obviously. So you're carrying all this alone. But you're capable. You know your product. You know your craft. You're brilliant at what you do. You just wish somebody would translate the business side of retail into language you can actually use. That's what I heard, and that's what we're going to address. So starting the week commencing January 6, 2026, I'm sharing one practical insight per week for an entire year. 52 weeks, 52 focused episodes. Each one tackles one specific challenge that real independent retailers are dealing with right now. One idea you can test in your shop. No six-figure budgets, no armies of analysts, no corporate waffle. Just clear, actionable guidance drawn from 30 years of retail experience, research that genuinely changed how UK retail works, Victorian retail wisdom that still delivers results, real-world examples for independents who are thriving, and the honest truth about what actually drives sales versus what just sounds good in theory. Every week, one post, one insight, one thing you can test. Over a full year, we'll cover everything from Victorian retail wisdom to cutting-edge research, always translated for independent shop reality. I'm not promising miracles. I'm not claiming that 52 weeks of insight will solve all your problems while you sleep. What I am promising is this. If you commit to this journey, if you test these ideas, if you adapt them to your specific situation, you will understand your business better than 95% of retailers out there. You'll have access to the same principles that billion-pound retailers use: customer psychology, flow patterns, inventory optimization, loyalty mechanics, all the things they pay consultants £10,000 a day to advise on. And you'll have it explained in plain English, adapted for your scale with real examples from shops like yours. Some weeks you'll need something and say, yes, exactly. Other weeks you might think, that doesn't quite fit my situation. And that's fine. Take what works, adapt the rest. This isn't a rigid system, it's a toolkit. Here's what I've learned after 3 decades. The shops that thrive aren't the ones with the biggest budgets. They're the ones with the clearest thinking. They understand what game they're actually playing. They know their unique advantages. They make decisions based on data, that is, what is known, not panic. They build relationships, not just transactions. And those are all teachable skills. In a couple of weeks, we start properly. Between now and then, I'm taking a break for Christmas and New Year. Time with my family, time to recharge. And I hope that you get time to do that as well. When we come back in January, I'm going to share everything, every principle, every technique, every hard-won lesson from 3 decades at the forefront of retail. Not because I have all the answers, but because after listening to frustrated resellers like you, I realize I have information that you need, and hoarding it would be a waste. So here's what I'd like you to do now. Click the subscribe button so you don't miss out on week 1. Turn on the notifications, that bell icon. And we'll start in the first week in January. That's when we begin proper. Come ready to test ideas and not just hear about them. This will only work if you actually try things, even small tests, even simple changes. And most importantly, come ready to believe that you can build something sustainable. Despite the headlines, despite the challenges, despite everything, because you can. I've seen it happen, and I'm going to show you how. And if you've got any questions, drop them in the comments. I will read everything, and I'll respond to everyone. This is a conversation, not a broadcast. So see you in January.